Hi, so wouldn't it be great if you could get great sounds in your mix even if you have very little experience in mixing, or even if you have more experience in mixing, to get a quick mix up with nicely produced sounds in a very short time? Well, enter Waves StudioVerse. So let's go. Now, Waves StudioVerse, I didn't actually try it until recently, but I've always been intrigued by the name somehow, StudioVerse. It kind of sounds huge, like universe, you know? But then for the studio. Unfortunately, it got released around the same time that Waves decided to go full subscription, so there was a lot of controversy about it, and I think this product actually got snowed under a bit by that. That's why I think it's still nice to have a look at it now. And actually they did do a recent update to StudioVerse, but more about that later. Now, a small disclaimer, Waves did provide me with a Creative Access subscription, so I could try out all of these plugins and StudioVerse for you, but they have not sponsored this video, and what I'm going to show you and tell you is really my own opinion. Now, I'll not get into the nitty-gritty detail of this, since there are plenty of videos that already do that, but I just wanted to know how to use this in practice and what kind of results I could get if I used Waves StudioVerse on every track versus doing a quick rough mix myself. But just quickly, if you've never heard about it, Waves StudioVerse is actually a plugin chainer, which allows you to create full plugin chains, so combining a lot of other plugins in some very flexible ways and with some great usability features. And apart from it allowing you to make your own plugin chains and publishing them to the cloud, so you can share them with others, they also provide a lot of presets by some very famous mix engineers. So that's also a very interesting feature of this. But let's have a quick look. If I, for example, add StudioVerse on this stereo drum track, and let's disable the presets to start off with, you can see that over here you have a number of slots that just allow you to add plugins. And those can be Waves plugins, for example, like this Abbey Road Red, but they can also be third-party plugins. You have your VST3 menu over here. For example, if you want your Pro Q3 plugin on there, you can add it in the plugin chain over here as well. And a very creative feature is that you can also add splits in the plugin slot. For example, you can do a parallel split, which allows you to split your signal path. And then you have, again, plugin slots over here that you can fill with all sorts of plugins. For example, a reverb maybe, and a delay, which are now run in parallel. And you can have even more parallel channels here if you want to. And you can also do a multi-band split, and that basically splits up in frequency bands. So in this band you have all frequencies until 92 Hz, then over here until 545 Hz, in the next band until 4000 Hz, and here 4000 Hz and up. You can of course change these numbers as you wish, and again you have plugin slots that will then only work on that particular frequency band that you've set up. Now, a very nice usability feature is that you can assign the most important controls on your plugins to those macros here on the left side. For example, suppose that you want to link the high tone here to that first macro. You can assign it to macro 1, and over here you can say that you want to call it something entirely different, more representing what this control does to you. And in that way you can pick the most important controls in your plugin chain and assign them to the macro so that they're easily accessible without opening any of the individual plugins. Now, this plugin chain you can save to the Waves StudioVerse in the cloud. You can share it with others, and you can even provide a link to your friend so that he can access exactly your plugin chain if he puts it into the StudioVerse plugin. Now, another great feature, and that's what we're going to try out in this video mostly, is that there are also a lot of presets here. So other people have shared their plugin chain, and those are also some well-known mix engineers. For example, Andrew Sheps has shared some of his plugin chains. For example, he has a parallel preset for electric guitar. If we download that, you can see that he has a Sheps Omni channel here, Kramer HLS plugin, and he has a parallel split with a True Verb, a Pubic Child, a Fairchild emulation, and some effect plugins like Meta Flanger and Mondo Mod. And he provides the most important controls of all those plugins here on the left side in those macros. Again, they're named after the function that they have, not necessarily after the exact button in the plugin. For example, this one is clarity, defizz, solidity, and you can check which plugin parameter that control is linked to by clicking on edit here. So you can see that the clarity is linked to the EQ mid gain on the Sheps Omni channel. Defizz is linked to the de-esser controls, etc. Now, what I want to do in this video, I want to try the presets from Waves StudioVerse to get an acceptable rough mix of a little wash track that I made a rough mix of myself first, so that we can compare. By the way, the Suoss song is called 500 Miles. It was produced and mixed by Perfect Sounds Unleashed. So shout out to him, and I'll provide his socials in the description below. And I'll also provide a link to the full song, of course, which has been released already, so you can check it out. But let's first have a quick listen to the rough mix that I made of some of the basic tracks of this song. And those are just a vocal, a guitar, a bass guitar, and a combined track of all drums. Let's have a quick listen.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down.
Yeah, so that was my quick mix. There's not that many effects on there. There's nothing on the mix bus except for a limiter, but it's not actually doing any limiter. It's mostly just guarding against peaks in case they happen. Now, as you can see here on top, that's my basic mix that I made. At the bottom, I have a copy of all those tracks without any plugins at the moment, except for the Pro Elegant to guard against clipping. And these are the tracks that I want to try StudioVerse on, and listen to what the final mix sounds like compared to my original rough mix. So let's start with the drums. Now, this is the rough drum track without anything on there. Pretty decent sound. They're from Superior Drummer 3, by the way, which has great sounds already. But let's put StudioVerse on there, and since this is a stereo track, I'll put StudioVerse Stereo on here. Now, like I said, I really want to make use of the presets, so let's try some tags to find a suitable preset. Let's try drums. Maybe it's kind of an indie track. And I kind of like the name of this preset, as in Drum Bus Vibey, by an engineer called Lanewood. So let's download that one. Let's move it over a bit so we can see the plugins. It has an MV2, an SSL-G channel, some reverb, and a limiter, I guess, to rein in the peaks as well. So let's have a listen. And how does it compare to the drums that I mixed? Okay, mine are much more ambient. So maybe add some ambience to this one as well. It's a different kind of ambience, but it's fine. It was a bit much on my rough mix probably anyway, but let's go with this. And let's see what it sounds like without and with StudioVerse now. I think it is a bit punchy though for this track. Maybe I can control that with the vibe. Let's have a listen. Yeah, I think that maps to some sort of compression. Let's have a look. Vibe maps to the low level and output gain of the MV2. Okay, so it does have to do with compression, but just how much you pull up the low level in the track, I guess. So let's reduce it a bit to how I feel this track. Okay, nice. Let this be the drum sound. Let's move on to bass. This is the bass guitar without anything on it. Nicely recorded, so let's put StudioVerse on there. This time the mono version, because it's a mono track. And obviously I want to search for a bass sound. I think it was recorded DI, so let's choose this tag to look for presets. Again, the indie style. And maybe let's just go for a preset of the same mix engineer, Lanewood. Okay, nice, he has 3 presets for bass. Let's set up the first one. So this preset consists of an R channel with some EQ, a gate and compression, and a doubler just to add some movement in that bass sound. We are on a mono channel, of course, so we will hear that effect only in mono, but I'm sure it will add some movement. Let's have a listen. Okay, we have a control here called tight. Let's see what that does. Yeah, I do hear how it tightens the sound, but I like the way it was, so I'm just leaving it there. What is that mapped to anyway? Yeah, so tight is mapped to the compressor controls on the R channel. Makes sense. Let's see how it sounds together with the drums. Yeah, nice. Okay, before I move on to the electric guitar, if you like this video or find it useful at all, please give it a big thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm so that YouTube will show it to more people so that they can all enjoy this video. And if you like videos like this, please subscribe to the channel and ring the little bell icon so you get notified when I publish another video. For even more support, you can use the super thanks button below the video, which is kind of a virtual tip jar. And you can also give me tremendous support by using the affiliate links in the description below in case you want to buy anything at one of these stores. If you click the affiliate links first, then I will get a small commission on your purchase without any additional cost to you, which is a win-win situation, of course, if you want to support the channel. But let's now see what StudioVerse does to our guitar track. Now the guitar is on a mono channel as well, of course, but maybe it's nice to try to add a bit of a stereo effect on this, which in my own mix I kind of did by sending it to a stereo reverb. But so far with StudioVerse, I have not set up any effect sense, so let's just make this track stereo, which means that we can now put a stereo StudioVerse on here. And let's again search for, well, a guitar, electric guitar, indie, same style of course. And wouldn't you know it, Yoad Nevo has another preset. Well, let's be consistent and choose that one. What does he have on there? CLA Mixdown, sort of a combine everything channel from Chris Lord Algae. Abbey Road Red 37, which I believe is mostly an analog EQ, and some reverb. Yeah, so I don't need a reverb send because the reverb is actually on the individual track here. Let's have a listen. Well, it's definitely stereo now, so that trick has worked. Yeah, what are the controls? I don't really need more drive, but let's see what body control does. Well, actually exactly what I would expect. What is it mapped to? Okay, the Abbey Road Red, tone low, left. Okay. Do we need some more or less compression maybe? Nah, that was pretty much in the sweet spot, I think. So let's see what we have combined now to make sure that the individual levels sort of make sense. Well, that does make sense to me, so let's move on to the vocal. Now I have to say that I kind of liked the fact that I could get a stereo effect on the guitar by making it stereo and putting the stereo StudioVerse on there. So let's actually do the same for the vocal. Let's change this track to a stereo track in Cubase and put a stereo StudioVerse on there. Male vocal, same style. And hey, let's just use the same engineer preset, Yoad Nevo. And of course he has a lead vocals preset, so let's set that up. Okay, definitely more plugins on here. He has a Renaissance de-esser, an API 2500 compressor, SSL EQ, an exciter plugin, a doubler, and some reverb to get a nice vocal sound. Let's have a listen.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down.
Okay, that sounds quite wet, but what I also hear, I probably want a little bit more compression to make it a bit smoother. Let's do that first.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling.
Yeah, I like that. I do like the vocal sound now, so let's listen to it in the mix, especially to that reverb, because it seems to be a bit much in solo, but let's see how it combines with the other tracks.
Storm is rising, the wind is
Yeah, it's a bit much, so let me turn that down.
crying, stars are falling down. Hope is rising.
Well, it's definitely a different reverb that I have set up. Yeah, it's much longer, But okay, let's trust the preset process and leave it in there like this. And now see how it compares to my initial quick mix. So over here you can see both mixes in Cubase now. I can switch from my basic mix to the StudioVerse mix in this way. And I've made sure that they're about the same level so that it's more easy to compare them. And I've also made sure that the instrument levels are sort of similar as well, so that not in one mix the guitar is much louder than in the other mix. It's probably not exactly the same, but at least it gets in the same ballpark. So let's compare them. And it's not really about which mix is better, of course. I just want to know, can I actually get an acceptable rough mix with Waves StudioVerse in this way? And how does it compare to my own rough mix when I did it myself? Let's have a listen. Starting with my mix, and I'll switch it up a bit while the mixes are running, so it's easy to compare them when we do the transition.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down. Hope is rising, the world is trying to keep those stars in place. Put a smile back on your face.
Well, this is the same track, of course, so you're bound to get the same feel of the song, I guess. And listening to this, the mixes are different, of course, but it's not that one of them is really totally off and terrible compared to the other one. Let's have a quick listen and compare the same part of the song now, just from the beginning. First my mix.
Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down. Storm is rising, the wind is crying, stars are falling down.
Yeah, well, I have to say that's actually quite a nice smooth mix sound. But I'm really interested to know how you hear this. So do you prefer one over the other? Or do you maybe hear obvious problems or mistakes in one over the other? Maybe because I'm using presets, or maybe the mistakes in my mix have been fixed by the presets. I don't know, tell me how you feel about it. And also in general, how do you feel about this way of making a mix, using presets? It's definitely different, but it's also definitely very quick. Can you see the use of this in your situation? Maybe for a quick mix, maybe because you don't know exactly yet how to use your plugins. Yeah, just let us know in the comments what you think about this. I do like the fact that you can look into the kitchen of some of the well-known mix engineers, see how they would combine the Waves plugins. And some of them even have their own Waves plugins, of course, and they are in their plugin chain. But still it's nice to see how they would set up a vocal chain, an electric guitar chain, etc. Now, in order to use it like I just showed you, you do have to install all of these plugins, of course, and have licenses for them. But even if you don't have a license for a particular Wave plugin, you can still use the plugin chain, and it will load the plugin in demo mode, which means that it will have some dropouts every once in a while. But you can hear what it sounds like. And then if you like the plugin chain, now maybe you can pick up the plugin on one of their sales, which they have very often, of course. Now what I've shown you this far is the audio effects section of StudioVerse, and they recently released the same concept for virtual instruments called StudioVerse Instruments. Now if you're interested in that and want me to make a video about it, let me know in the comments as well, and I'll be sure to dive into it. Now a lot of these plugin chains were made by well-known mixing engineers, and you can be sure that they pretty much all grew up with Waves plugins, so they probably really know how to work them. But in case you don't, I have a series about classic mixing techniques that I will link over here. So if you're interested in that, check it out, enjoy, and see you soon.